Austin Lee Russell, better known as Chumlee from his time as an employee at the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, home of the show Pawn Stars, has become a vital part of the shop's success over his time working there. Growing up, Chumlee became best friends with Corey Harrison, son of Rick Harrison, and ever since the two started hanging out, Chumlee has been working for the family shop. Over the course of his time on the show Pawn Stars and as a Gold and Silver Pawn employee, Chumlee has made a few deals where he really did strike gold. So in this video, we're going to be counting down 5 times that Chumlee scored big on Pawn Stars. But before we go ahead and get into that, if you guys are brand new here to the channel, make sure you go ahead and subscribe with your channel notifications turned on. Then comment down below saying I subscribed for your chance to be featured in our video shoutout at the end of the month, where you guys actually get your name and comment on screen for everyone else watching to see. And while you're at it, be sure to like this video if you guys are fans of Pawn Stars. Now without further ado, let's jump in and take a look at 5 times Chumlee scored big on Pawn Stars. Number 5.
You just bought those?
Yes, I did.
Didn't call anybody and spent over $3,800 on swords.
After purchasing a set of swords for roughly $4,000, Chumlee was confronted by Rick and Corey Harrison for not double-checking the swords before handing over a fat stack of cash in exchange for them. Rick decided he wanted to prove Chumlee wrong by bringing in a local swords expert to examine the newly acquired swords and see if they were really worth the money Chumlee had just spent on them. Mike, one of Rick's friends and a local swords expert, came into the shop to appraise the swords, and it actually turned out better for Chumlee than expected. The first sword, it was claimed to be a very valuable sword in good condition, and it was actually crafted by a pretty famous swordsman multiple centuries ago. The second sword also had a marking proving it was crafted by another notable swordsman dating back to the late 1400s. Finally, the third sword had a mark claiming it was made by yet another famous swordsman. However, this marking did seem to be forged. Despite the forged marking on the third sword though, Mike said the entire set as a whole was actually worth closer to $13,000. It seems like, at least in this case, Chumlee does get the last laugh.
What are they worth?
Well, as a package, you're looking at about $13,000 for all 3.
I'm not going to congratulate you. It doesn't take skill to win in a slot machine.
Number 4.
Today, I've got Rick's personal sword. This sword was made in the early 1600s. During that time, there was a lot of one-on-one duels.
Mike is actually back for this instance, where Chumlee also scores big, once again helping out in the swords department. In this case, Rick had sent a one-of-a-kind katana that he bought for around $16,000 to Japan to have it fully restored and brought back to its original glory. And after it returned home and back to Rick in pristine condition, he ordered that Corey and Chumlee both keep the katana as a not-for-sale item. He seriously reiterated that this sword was not for sale as it was a special item to him. After all, the value of the sword was roughly now $35,000 to $40,000 according to Mike. Rick even said straight to Chumlee's face, "Don't screw my sword up." But lo and behold, UFC's own Dana White strolled into the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop looking for a pristine sword to add to his collection. Chumlee jumped right into conversation with Dana, saying, "I've got just the one for you." Dana offered up $28,000 in counter to Chumlee's original $40,000 first price, which obviously came from Mike himself, and after a little more negotiating, Dana offered to buy the katana for $30,000 and also pay another $30,000 for a few other swords that were in the shop at the time, making the total now a smooth $60,000. But then after finding out his sword was just sold, Rick went to have a little chat with Dana to see what was up. And oddly enough, that conversation actually ended with Dana buying yet another sword for another $9,000, bringing his new total up to $69,000. So Dana White just casually strolled into the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, spent almost $70,000 on swords to put into his weapons room in his house. I think it's safe to say you probably don't want to ever try and rob Dana White, because he will literally have an arsenal of swords to back him up. Also, the fact that, he just does all the UFC stuff anyways, that's probably a good reason to not rob him in general. But the swords now really just add impact to injury.
Can we do 9?
Yeah, I'll give you 9 for it.
Sweet.
Number 3.
So this is supposed to be the most amazing car on the planet.
It's pretty dang close. I mean, Tupac probably wrote some poems in this thing.
Moving on, this one is definitely an oddity, but a big score for Chumlee nonetheless in an interesting way. Rick and Chumlee went to visit a local car shop in Las Vegas, which actually had in possession the car that Tupac was shot in. After watching a Mike Tyson fight, Tupac headed out for the night in a BMW, but was shot shortly after leaving the arena and actually died a few days later. Tupac's Hummer was actually sold for roughly $200,000 just before this BMW was actually listed as a public item for sale, and while the bullet holes and major damage caused from the incident were removed from the car and it was actually polished up, there was no denying that this was indeed the car that held Tupac the night of the attack that would later end his life. After having the car appraised by one of his friends, Rick was told that the car was worth roughly $500,000 to $1 million, give or take. Chumlee quoted the car as being the coolest thing they've ever had the option to purchase, and the shop was actually offering the car for sale for $1.5 million, but had previously declined an offer for $900,000. Unfortunately, however, Rick and Chumlee just couldn't compete with the $1.5 million price tag or even the $900,000 price tag, and they did have to walk away from the buy. You might be wondering, well then how did Chumlee score big off of this occasion? And actually, Chumlee, despite not being able to purchase Tupac's BMW, was still able to go home with a smile on his face because during this occasion, he actually got to teach Rick himself a few things that Rick didn't know at the time. Rick even said later that when Chum can teach me something new, it's a pretty rare occasion. So for Chumlee to be a part of something that might happen once in a blue moon is definitely a W in his book, and you can't put a price on that.
At least I got a whole education from Chum. And when I learned something from Chum, it's a pretty rare occasion.
Number 2.
This is it.
The OJ Bronco.
Wow.
It is the OJ Bronco.
If you guys thought the BMW Tupac was shot in was a crazy moment, this one is about to blow you away. Rick and Chumlee caught on to the sale of one of the most iconic vehicles in history, O.J. Simpson's Ford Bronco that he actually drove in his infamous police chase. This Bronco in specific was seen by hundreds of millions of people as it was live broadcasted across the nation during his time running from the police. The Bronco even came with the exact license plate that was on the car during the time of the chase, and it was in pristine condition with very low mileage. Rick described the Bronco as not just being any SUV, it was the SUV. The seller, however, requested $1.3 million for the iconic Bronco, which Rick and Chumlee both knew was a little too far out of their range, and unfortunately they had to pass on it, but once again, Chumlee was able to teach Rick a few more neat tricks here, and took home that W in a different way.
I could drop down to $1,250,000.
You might get that or even more at auction. I'm gonna pass on it.
Number 1. Another one of Chumlee's biggest scores actually comes from a potato. And no, I'm not joking. I wish I was, but I'm being very serious. Sean Price stepped into the gold and silver pawn shop holding none other than a potato, claiming that this exact potato that he now held in his hand was thrown at and hit Martin Luther King Jr. during one of his iconic speeches. Sean Price then asked, get this, $100,000 for this potato. I don't know if Sean has ever heard of the dollar menu, but there ain't no potato worth $100,000. And you already know that Chumlee saw this too. He knew that without any proper documentation or proof that this potato did actually hit Martin Luther King Jr., that it was worth next to nothing, honestly probably less than the dirt it came from. And after a little negotiation, Chumlee offered up $2.25 for the potato, which Sean Price reluctantly agreed upon. So from $100,000 to $2.25. I don't think there's ever been a worse bargain for the seller in pawn history. That's just a big yikes.
No, it's not just like French fries, bro. It's like revolutionary.
If you have paperwork, man.
Let's do it. My man.
And there you guys have it. Those are 5 times Chumlee scored big on Pawn Stars. And while a few of them might have been a little abstract and odd, you can't deny Chumlee is always going home with a smile on his face. If you guys are fans of the Pawn Stars show, or if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big old thumbs up, slap that like button, it would be much appreciated. And if you guys are brand new to the channel, make sure you go ahead and subscribe with your channel notifications on, then drop us a comment down below saying I subscribed for your chance to be featured in our video shoutout, where you guys can get your name and comment featured in one of our videos and on screen for everyone else to see. And by turning on those notifications, you'll never miss another upload. You can always be the first person to watch, like, and comment on each and every new post, since YouTube will send you a message every single time we go live with a new video. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll see you guys later. Peace out.